You can get jobs, like real jobs out of hackathons.
And that's how you get selected in JP Morgan. So I think to the point, hackathons are really, really important in terms of getting job when you're doing your bachelor's. I see people like cheating a lot just to get like a 9 pointer, right, out of 10. At least in our college, it was out of 10. I'm not sure how it has turned right now. But what do you think about like the importance of GPA? Is it really that important? Do people need to cheat just to make sure they get above 9 pointer?
As Steve Jobs says, right? You can't connect the dots looking forward. You can only connect them looking backward. तो तुम्हारे decision जो है, वो तुम आगे जाके तुम्हें पता चलेगा was it a good decision or not.
But then a lot of people ask this question कि यार once you start working at a job, you start getting money और उसके बाद पढ़ाई करना बहुत difficult है, right? So then like did you face the same issue where you worked and then you're like पैसा आ रहा है तो क्यों करना master? And can you expand for the users a bit more about like what do you mean by front end, back end, and then UI, like all these kind of words where it's important for anyone to know. Usually they apply that in the job after bachelor.
You should be in a position to come up with some of the edge cases on your own, and if you are, make sure that you communicate that, hey, I'm writing this code and this is the one of the potential edge cases which I'm anticipating.
How do you prepare for masters? Masters के लिए कैसे prepare करना है in terms of GRE, LOR, SOPs? How do you think about that? Job करते करते तूने वो सारी चीज़ कैसे prepare की? For people in India or people where English is not the native language, the most difficult part is verbal and essay, right? So how did you approach that?
SOP is like you standing in front of the admission committee and telling them, this is why you should give me that admission. This is what I would bring to the table. And this can be a good interviewing tip as well. That
Okay, I think in the last video we discussed more about how bachelors help you shape your personality. Ajinkya also discussed about his motivation behind इसने computer science कैसे choose किया, क्यों choose किया, and the benefits of computer science. In this video, we'll discuss more about life after bachelors. कि job कैसे लेना है, job करना है कि नहीं before masters. If you want to do masters, how do you select universities? How do you prepare your LORs, SOPs? How do you think about internships when you're doing a master's? How do you attend career fairs? All on that we'll touch up in this video. And if you have not seen the previous video, I'll put the link in the description down below. But I think this is more of an extension of a previous video. So let's get started. I think we can start with where we left off from. Okay, let's start with where we left off from. We left off from hackathons and networking. I think we were discussing the advantages of hackathon, where you're creating more like an MVP, and how that hackathon mindset is applicable for job. So Dande, what do you think? What do you think about thinking, like how has hackathon been important to you in your day-to-day life in the job?
awesome. Yeah. So I think hackathon is a very exciting opportunity for you to pick up and work on something really concrete in a very short span of time. So this is excuse me, this is especially important when it is applied in the context of coming up with a like ideation of a project. So what does ideation means in this context is you have a problem statement and you essentially break it down into multiple fragments. That's not ideation though, but ideation sort of comes down to the fact that, hey, we need to create something unique which will create an impact. That's what ideation means. For example, the smart Pune hackathon which I was a part of back when I was doing my bachelor's, there we had to submit an idea, okay, that hey, we think that, let's say, the garbage management system in Pune can do better based, and we can digitize this in some way, like, for example, you have a common garbage place, that is the garbage place getting cleaned, and if it is not getting cleaned frequently, you can directly talk to the Pune Municipal Corporation. This was not the exact idea, so actually I'm not able to remember what the exact idea was, but it was around these lines, that it was something around the garbage collection and giving you a platform to directly talk to Pune Municipal Corporation in this case. Okay, so ideation. Now you have an idea, you have submitted the idea, your idea got selected. Now you have to think about ways in which you can implement the idea. So that's where breaking down that problem into multiple fragments comes into picture, and this has to be done in a very short span of time. That's what makes hackathon unique. Breaking down a problem statement and idea into smaller fractions and then implementing on that in a very short span of time. MVP, right? Minimum viable product. That's what MVP means. That ये तो छोटा सा प्रोडक्ट है, अब इसके अराउंड अपन पूरी दुनिया बना सकते हैं, समथिंग लाइक दैट. सो लिंक्डइन मेरी कंपनी, ओके, how it started. Someone identified that यार ये न्यूज़पेपर में रोज by the way back in 2000s people didn't had like an online forums जहाँ पे वो जाके apply करे jobs को. They had the job openings in newspaper, so people used to read newspaper every single day, especially the people who are searching for jobs. They used to open the newspaper. There was a separate section for jobs that are open and stuff in your area. They used to call the person and let's say if and in some cases they used to mail the resumes to the actual employers. They used to see the resumes and then they used to give the call back that hey, you applied for this job, are you still interested? And the process goes on from there. Very tedious process. Someone identified that hey, this can be digitized. You can just come and click the apply button and the employer will know that hey, this person is interested, and then we can start with the communication. A fantastic idea. It I don't know if it started as a hackathon or not, but the ideation part was very nice. Then those guys, the people who were the forefathers of LinkedIn, I used to like I like them to call forefathers. They implemented on that, and now here we are, a huge platform. When they came up with the feed, and it sort of multiple product got integrated, and now it's like a full-fledged company of where thousands of engineers are working on one product, so to say. So that's where hackathon gives you the platform to get started with something which can grow into something really big. uh, so yeah, and also it gives you the experience to work with some really smart minds. I think I mentioned that in the last video as well, that you get a lot of opportunity to work with industry leaders, especially when the hackathon has been arranged by some people. Like for example, the hackathon which I worked on, which it was arranged by Persistent Systems, and I got a chance to directly work with the Persistent engineer while being a student in my bachelor's when I was like 21 or something. So that gave me an immense opportunity to see how those guys work on the projects, how those guys break down complex problems into smaller fragments and then implement on top of that, how they plan about things. Oh, by the way, one very really good thing about that hackathon can open a lot of opportunities in a way that you can get jobs, like real jobs out of hackathon. So let's say if you've done just good enough job in the hackathon, people may take a note of that and they may keep you in mind. So it happened to me. I was very fortunate about that, that the team which I worked with, okay, it contained like a manager who is like um, a good connection of me right now. Like, so we follow each other on LinkedIn and we essentially comment on each other's posts and stuff. So at the time they said that I already had the SAP offer back in the day. So but they were like, hey, but if you still would, let's say in the future at some point, let's say you want to change some companies, we would be open to talk. That gave me a really good, it was a reinforcement for me that hey, people like my work and people would like to work with me sometime in the future. It was a great feeling to have, honestly, as a student. So it
And yeah,
can,
I think I completely agree with this
yeah.
thing where hackathons help you get jobs. And the reason is, in my college, in DJ Sangvi, we had this hackathon. JP Morgan came in. So JP Morgan आया था, and they conduct hackathons every year. So in the hackathons, people who participated, almost 70% of the people got offers, and this was in the third year. So, and what they try to see is not that you've won the hackathon or not. They are all trying to see how do you think in the hackathon, right? Because it's a lot of things. It's about teamwork. It's about how fast you think. Do you know the meaning of minimum viable product? Are you aware of scope creep or not? So I think, and also within the team, how do you contribute? Like, let's say if there are multiple people, everyone wants to do coding, but if you are good at designing, are you okay to take up designing and let other people to do coding, right? How do you presentation skills? I think a lot of things are tested in that hackathon. It's not about winning, it's about how you behave in the hackathon, and that's how you get selected in JP Morgan. So I think, to the point, hackathons are really, really important in terms of getting job when you're doing your bachelor's. But I think, just wrapping up bachelor's, right? Ajinkya, what do you think about the importance of GPA in bachelor's? Because I see people like cheating a lot just to get like a 9 pointer, right, out of 10. At least in our college, it was out of 10. I'm not sure how it has turned right now. But what do you think about like the importance of GPA? Is it really that important? Do people need to cheat just to make sure they get above 9 pointer, or like, what do you think about this?
I think first of all, cheating, like just touching up and getting our piece with the cheating point of this. Uh, Cheating is not a good thing. Okay, I mean, if you are getting like you have you have a book open and then you're writing the paper by what by reading out whatever there is in the book, it just says that hey, you are just giving a false impression to people who are looking at you, and then you yourself also know that thing to some extent, that hey, I don't know that, but still the credential is on my resume. That's just up straight, that's lying. Okay. uh, and whom are you lying to? The You are lying to yourself in this context. Okay, so that's a terrible thing to do, so you should not do it, first of all. That said, GPA is important only to a point where you are eligible. Okay, you have just got yourself beyond the criteria which is required by, let's say, companies or the universities who you are, let's say, trying to get admission to. If you already have if you are already there, if you are beyond that criteria, then like a 8.5 GPA and a 9.9 GPA sort of falls in the same bucket, in my opinion, at least. Because think about it in a way, university, talking about universities getting the admission to masters, or even let's talk about companies as well. Let's talk companies rather than universities, because we are talking about jobs in this case. Companies, excuse me, they have their own criteria to assess you, whether to give you a job or not. That's what interviews are for, right? They have the aptitude test, they have maybe 2, 3, 4, 7, 8, 10 interview rounds, or some companies I know of. So they have their own way of assessing your abilities. So your GPA anyway is not going to be like a driving force for you to get the job. You get a 9 GPA, you have a, let's say, A plus in whatever course you have cheated in. Okay, or not even cheated in, you have an A plus. But let's say if you have asked like a basic question, for example, data structures is the course. You're asked like, hey, how to traverse a linked list. You don't know that. That's terrible. What does that GPS says? That hey, if either this is lying, or this guy is just like, he can just mug up some good things and then write in the paper, and after that he just don't know anything about it. It's a terrible place to be in. So don't do that. Okay. First. And second thing, GPA is only good enough if you are above the criteria, and after that everyone falls under the same, because under the same bucket, because all of us will be applying to the same jobs, to the same companies, and the same folks will be interviewing us for the role. And that's the reason why they just come up with like 2 or 3 people at the end who they select, and not like all of the people with higher GPS. If GPA would have been that important, think about it. Okay, all the higher GPS one would have been directly picked without an interview, and all the lower GPA ones would directly have been rejected. But that does not happen, right? So GPS. Um, GPS, I would not totally rule out GPA. Again, I'm saying GPAs are important because GPAs are the credentials. GPA is your degree, which is gonna stay with you throughout your life. So GPA is gonna give you that stamp that hey, I'm at least this good. But that's not the only thing. Your um, capability of, let's say, your um competence in the subject is also equally important, so to say. So you should find the right balance.
Got it. I completely agree, and I think abhi bachelor's ke baad let's go into like job and masters, right? So, जब मैं third year में था, everyone around me was applying for like masters, and that's what kind of motivated me also to apply for masters. But I see other people, for example, you mentioned in the last video briefly, you touched upon that you had a job at SAP, right? So how did you think about that? Like, जब सब लोग तेरे आजू बाजू में सोच रहे कि मेरे को मास्टर्स करना है, why were you so sure that hey, I don't want to do masters right now, I'll do a job and then I'll see?
Yeah, good question. um, this is a very tricky place to be in, and that's why we should understand. हमने बहुत लोगों से बात करना चाहिए जो कि ऑलरेडी मास्टर्स कर रहे हैं या जॉब कर रहे हैं, ट्राइंग टू अंडरस्टैंड डिफरेंट पर्सपेक्टिव्स ऑफ पीपल, कि उन्होंने उनके लाइफ में डिसीजन कैसे लिया. बिकॉज लेट्स बी ऑनेस्ट, हम भी, we also, you cannot, as Steve Jobs says, right, you can't connect the dots looking forward, you can only connect them looking backward. तो तुम्हारे डिसीजन जो है वो तुम आगे जाके तुम्हें पता चलेगा was it a good decision or not. But during the time of taking the decision, the good part is, in the world of social media in 2025, the time when we are recording this, uh, social media is just mainstream. Everyone is on social media, and if someone is not on social media, he's a ghost. Okay, nobody knows him anymore, right? So you have the ability to reach out to any damn human being in the world. Okay, just reach out to people who you want who you want to follow, let's say, or even have a similar career path. It can be an entrepreneur as well. For example, you want to start your own company. This is a completely separate example than like a person who is searching for job or going for masters in my context. But taking a different, slightly unconventional example, So that for just for the sake of this conversation, okay, you want to start your own company, you don't know where to start. Okay, there is this founder, there is this person like an alumni of your college or any other college. Okay, it's not very limited to college or anything. You can just ask him that, hey, I have this, not, you don't even have to mention the idea or anything. I have this nice idea and I would like to implement on it. The implementation part, I have it with me, because you will have to have it with you. Otherwise, how can you ask someone that, hey, I don't know how to implement it, but I want to start a company? That doesn't make any sense. But let's say, let's for the sake of this conversation, I have this idea and da da da, and I would like to start this company. How did you do it? Okay, this is a very simple thing, and people will be obliged to talk to you about a lot of what opportunities, even beyond, let's say, just starting the company. They can, you can even talk about how to hire the right talent, how to how I mean, whatever things which may comes up in an entrepreneurial context, you can have a lot of things get answered just by talking to people. Now, in terms of jobs, okay, if someone reach out to me that, hey, I would like to follow how you did whatever you did in your life, I would be very much interested in talking to people and telling them what I did. Okay, those were my decisions. Okay, and I'm living with them. Uh, and then they'll have to decide that, hey, is this the right decision for me as well at this point in time? That क्या masters जाना मेरे लिए सही decision है. If it is a right decision for you, you should go on. If it is not a right decision, for example, masters का ही लेते हैं. Some people directly opt for going for masters. They sort of think it in a way कि हाँ भैया, अगर मैं 2 साल काम कर लूँगा, I would waste those 2 years जो कि मैं मास्टर्स में, अगर मैं पहले ग्रेजुएट हो गया तो आई कैन अर्न लाइक गुड सम ऑफ मनी जस्ट बाय डूइंग द जॉब अब्रॉड इन दोज 2 years, जो कि मैं यहाँ पे शायद वेस्ट करूँ. सम पीपल मे थिंक कि मुझे अपने आप को फाइनेंशियली बैकअप करना है, सो दैट व्हेन आई गो टू मास्टर्स आई एटलीस्ट हैव some money which is contributed by some of my money, my hard earned money, which I would like to contribute to my own education, to my own further endeavors. So a lot of different conversation. Pick a person who you think is the right person to talk to and go on with it. I know people जो directly आए हैं. I know people जो 2 साल बाद आए हैं. मैं खुद हूँ. I know people जो 5-5 6-6 साल जॉब करके आए हैं. 6 years. Think about
Wow.
that. 6 years working as a professional, and then having the mindset to go back to studies. Give an aptitude test, apply for universities, write an SOP. It's a long and tedious process. They did it.
But then a lot of people ask this question कि यार once you start working at a job, you start getting money और उसके बाद पढ़ाई करना बहुत difficult है, right? So then like did you face the same issue where you worked and then you're like पैसा आ रहा है तो क्यों करना masters?
Not really. I didn't face the same issue, honestly, because Batre, if it is just from a context of preparing for GRE, I was already somewhat in the game. I would say when I was when I was in my, let's say, final year, like for 4th year of engineering, I already started convincing myself that settle तो नहीं होना है इस चीज पे. I need to go out and see the world for myself, as simple as that. And I would encourage जो भी masters करने आ रहे हैं, it is a very hard journey, but it is a very fulfilling one as well at the end, because you start seeing the world from a whole new lens. Because if you keep being in your comfort zone for a long time, तुम्हारे लिए वो दुनिया बन जाती है. But let's say if you come out and talk to people who are not from the same background as yourself, from not from the same culture, same background, having the same context, having the same idea of life as you get to learn a lot of things about them, and they get to learn a lot of things about you. I get that all the time when I talk to some of my American friends. I give them, let's say, maybe we talk about a lot of things. We talk about sports. That, hey, cricket is such a boring sport. But then when I tell them that the intricacies, the details which cricket has, like cricket is the game with the most rules. Okay, when I tell them, then they feel that it's not that boring, because it is a very intricate game, a very mental game, as compared to some of the games. Let's say football. It's a very physical game. I'll get to learn about a lot about, let's say, football. Not football. I used to follow football anyways, but let's say baseball or American football, right? So this is just one example of conversation. It can be politics, it can be religion, it can be cultures. How different companies, how different cultures and countries, operate in a way. So I would encourage people who would like to come to masters, let's say abroad, because it will open you up from a cultural standpoint. That doesn't mean that the people who decide to work in India are like in some way missing out or anything. They'll get to experience it in a slightly different way. They'll get to go in the depth of India, whereas the people who come abroad would like to see
Right.
different cultures. So yeah.
And then, like, talking about your job after your bachelor, right? What was your profile like? And can you expand for the users a bit more about, like, what do you mean by front end, back end, and then UI? Like, all these kind of words where it's important for anyone to know. And usually it's being used, usually they apply that in the job after bachelor's. Can you expand a bit on that?
Absolutely. Yes. That's a good question. So when I did my internship at SAP as well before I got the full time offer. So I got uh, so I'll give you the timeline so that everyone will be able to follow. So I got so in the third year of engineering, usually company starts coming in to get internships. At least in my college, they used to come and provide internships to student take interviews so that they can have a semester long internship in their final year, first semester. Okay. This includes examples like Goldman Sachs, like Nvidia, like even I believe like some of the Amazons and stuff also came in, but I'm not too sure about that. I think yeah, we had some interns in Amazon as well. So some of the companies which comes in third year, second semester, they usually comes in with a standpoint that hey, internship will be in the final year, first semester. I was not a part of them,
Okay.
so I directly applied for full time, and final year, like the year starts after like June, July ish,
Correct.
and some of the earlier companies which comes to the colleges are
Like
companies usually
banks.
are very quick to come who offer very lucrative financial offers. They
Right.
usually come in early in the game because a lot of
They want
students
good people
are
earlier.
available. Yeah.
Exactly.
But that doesn't mean that good not well, all the companies who come like later half of the year
Get the
are
bad
not
people. Yeah,
bad, but
exactly.
uh, think about it in a way that people who sort of get the realization that hey, I need to do a little bit later,
Right.
they start preparing in June. So you are just not prepared for a job. But let's say by the time August, September comes, you are prepared and then you get the job. So
Right.
so that's that. Um, I got my job offer in like August, third or fourth week in my first company. The name of the company was Mysis,
Okay.
which was a financial software company. And right after I got the offer from Mysis, in like 2 weeks or so, SAP came in for internship in the final semester, like the for final year, fourth year, second semester. So I applied for the internship because in my college, if you got the placement, like in one of the companies, you are just out of the game, and now you can only apply for internship if you don't have the internship. If you have the internship, you are totally out of the placement cell. Uh, Apply for SAP. I got the SAP offer. SAP was a lot more financially lucrative offer than Mysis, by the way, and Mysis came in earlier than SAP in this case. So what I said, some of the earlier companies which came
Not
in,
applicable to
yeah.
everything, right?
So I got the SAP internship, thankfully, and the interview it was conducted in the SAP office. So they had like an aptitude test or a coding test
Right.
in our college, and then once the coding test is done, they declare the results in like about a week or so, maybe 2 weeks. I don't really remember the timeline, but somewhere around 1 to 2 weeks they usually declare the results. um, and after the results are declared officially, you get the conversation from communication from HR that hey, the further steps would be there will be two interviews in the office setting. At least during our times, we used to go to the office. I don't know now, it may be like it can be a remote interview, or the company can also come to the placement
Right.
cells as well. So I went to the SAP office. There I had two different rounds. It was mostly algorithms and mostly the data structure design interview. I would say by data structure design, I mean they came up with a scenario that I don't exactly remember the scenario, but there they sort of had a hierarchy of things, um, and you were supposed to like design different interfaces and different classes which extends those interfaces, and then there was a coding question which was embedded within the hierarchy of all
So
the
they were
things.
testing like object-oriented programming, inheritance.
Precisely.
Okay.
Yeah,
Got it.
object-oriented programming, inheritance, and polymorphism. And
Polymorphism,
actually, you
right?
know what? That's very. Now I just realized they even asked me that. Hey, they when they asked the question, I immediately identified that hey, this is an algorithm question, and you can do like you can write a code. So
Right.
I sort of asked them, and this can be a good interviewing tip as well, that if let's say you are thinking about it in some way, don't just directly go and write the code. Okay, ask them that hey, I understood this thing out of the whole problem statement which you gave me, and I'm thinking about implementing it in this way. I'm thinking about writing a function which will do that for us. Is that what you want? Okay, I asked this question. I asked this just out of curiosity because I wanted to start the conversation with the interviewer, because I just felt that I explained the whole algorithm, but I never asked something. They asked me about the 4 pillars of object-oriented programming: abstraction, encapsulation, inheritance, polymorphism. I explained them that, like a one-liner explanation, that what is abstraction, what is encapsulation and stuff. So he was like, "Hey, so let's do this activity, right? How about you implement all of these 4 pillars into the code which you are writing right now, so that you can define some classes, have some member functions, and then write the code which you are supposed to write." I was like, okay, yeah, I can do that. I'll have to like brainstorm. So would it be okay if I just let you know what I'm thinking about, and then we can work on it like in a collaborative manner? He was like, that's fantastic, no problem there. So we worked on it, implemented it. He liked the solution. That's how I got the job. Okay, that's how I got the internship. And I was in the same team as that particular gentleman. So काफी very talented guy. I totally got to learn a lot of things from him, and especially the most important thing was the TT, because he used to play table tennis a lot. Is my good friend now. So
But also, like, for the audience, if we had to like say like one sentence, we had to define what is front end, what is back end.
yeah, I'm coming.
How would you explain it in a very simple way?
So the job which I applied for, or rather which I got for my internship during SAP, was a back-end position, and that's why the emphasis was on like object-oriented programming, coming to like structure, implementing algorithms and stuff. It was a back-end role. So let me break down what different components of software engineers are, or different components of a software is, rather. Okay, front end, which any end user sees, okay, on the screen. Front end is very very important for any software systems, because that's like the face of your software. If the front end is not good, if it is not responsive, if it is cluttered, if there is like a lot of things going on the front end, it is a not good user experience. And people will not go ahead with using your system, especially when you are, let's say, trying to build a solution which is to be used by a lot of people. A good examples can be any government site, so to say. A lot of things are going on, right? There are some news popping up and hundreds of buttons around. It's very difficult to find a right option for you, right? Not a good user experience. They can do a good job. Okay,
Right.
front end, those are the front end roles. In these things, what you usually have to implement are the front end systems, meaning how the end user is going to see see your software. That is a face of your software, as I like to call it. Okay, and how they will interact with different components, and let's say if they want to get their job done, how easy for them to get their job done, that is done through the front end.
Right.
Okay, now what is back end? Back end is what makes what get their job done. Back end is something which gets their job done. For
Backend is
example,
more about doing stuff. UI is front end is all about like how does that look on the screen.
exactly,
Okay.
exactly, that's how it is. So backend, let's say, let's take a very realistic example. You are on Instagram and you want to post a photo.
Right.
So you go to the photo posting button, and then you select the photos you want to post. You write the caption, you click the location, and there may be some other option like music and stuff. You pick all of those and you post. That's the front end. But in the back end, there may be a lot of things happening. For example, uploading your photo from your system to Instagram. Okay.
Right.
Now attaching a caption against a picture, attaching a location against a picture. Now location can be a whole different service, and that might be like a different team in Instagram. Okay, the caption management system can be a different team in Instagram.
Right.
The picture may be a different team, and also it's not these are not the only things which are there. There is a profile feature, because that photo will be linked to your profile, and let's say you are sharing it with someone.
Right.
Then it will be linked to multiple people, and when you post it, all of these things are uploaded to Instagram, and those are like available to all of the followers which you have, and also the people who have linked that photo, like you're sharing it with all of their followers as well. So it's a very complex mesh of systems which are interacting with each other, which are talking to each other. All of these things are done in backend. You don't have to know, yeah, what is a profile service, what is a location service, what are all the other services which are done,
Right.
which are interacting with each other. All you have to do is, I need to upload this photo. This is where I click this photo, this is the caption which I want to attach to the photo. Simple as that. So for you, that's the front end. Your overhead should not be how that is being uploaded. Your photo is that I want to upload it, I want to get it done. The post button will get it done for me. So that's how it works. And is that much details is
That's
okay?
fine. That's fine.
Okay.
And also, I think just to follow up, right? If you are, let's say, if you are in your third year of engineering, right? And right now we have like let's say we have Python, we have Java as like coding languages. Then we have TypeScript as the language for front end. We have React as like a framework. We have like multiple other languages, right? What do you think? What would you advise a third year student in engineering to pick up as like a learning programming language? And we can talk about like three things. One is the programming language, which is the base. Then what in backend should the person use, and what in front end should the person learn, so that the person can have at least a basic knowledge of full stack developer, right? And which will help that person get a job. So what would you advise your third year?
100%. So when I was in third year, at least I was in this position. Not everybody may be in the same position as myself, but I was not sure where I wanted to be, and a lot of folks might relate to me, because in third year you are just you had just taken some courses and you are like, okay, I like operating system and I like networking or I like database and stuff, but you are all over the place. You don't exactly know what you want to do, or what kind of engineer you want to be. Maybe some people may be fixated to backend, maybe because it is fancy. Some people may be fixated to front end because it is attractive, it is beautiful, it is like uh, it is very visual. Right. So but I would definitely recommend everyone to have working knowledge of all of the systems. For people who are interested in front end, to have some knowledge of how backend system works, as well as the backend folks to have some knowledge about front end system works, because that will make you that will enable you to relate to what front end people are trying to tell you, and vice versa. Okay. So how technologies interact with each other, that's what this opens up for you. um, Talking about learning, like what technologies to get yourself comfortable with. I think the most fanciest thing in the market for front end right now is React and TypeScript. There may be some other new upcoming technologies, because I think JavaScript frameworks are very fast running. They have like a new framework every 2 years, and it is better than the previous generation. So no complaints against that. That's not the case for all the generations, honestly, but like most of the generations are good. So try and keep up with the most recent one which you have, and try and have a working knowledge of it, to the level that if you are asked to create some preliminary front end, maybe like a form of some sort, or like, let's say some landing page or something, you should be able to do that. That should not be a job which will take you, like, in order for you, it will not take you long time to learn that thing. Maybe like a week, maybe slightly over a week, 10 days, 20 days. Just invest that much time. It is due diligence of you are trying to understand the technology. Okay. That said about front end, this is about people who are interested in back end but want to get to front end. But still, for the front end people as well, you have to come from bottoms up. Like, so for example, try and run the JavaScript frameworks. For example, plain old JavaScript, how it is being written. Try and look at it like a scripting language or programming language, or whatever you want to call it. Try and have different um, maybe there are some interview portals as well. So try and go in details about how the language is being written, or how it works with different technologies. For example, how JavaScript is integrated with, let's say, the web pages like HTML or something. That's a very preliminary UI design, but it's good to know those things. Okay. That essentially opens you up to a lot of different opportunities which you can um, for example, if you know the most basic fundamental of a technology, then you can build as high as you want to be. And about the backend, more like, think about it in a way that what kind of backend are you talking about? You can pick up some frameworks. For example, you can have Python, Flask, or Django framework. That can be like that sort of prepares you that gets you into a whole ecosystem of Python systems. Okay. Python is a very nice language which is very easy to learn and very easy to navigate. So usually I recommend Python, that here, go ahead with it. But that should not be the only thing which you know, because Python is a very loosely typed language. So it does not have, at least it has a type safety, but when you are writing the programming language, so the programming context does not get built up when you're talking about Python. Because let's say when you talk about Java or even Scala, or C++, even a more low level language than that, those are very hardly typed language. So the constraints which you build around these languages are, it sort of gives you that programming mindset. That's how I sort of looked at it when I was preparing for it, and that essentially made me understand Python a lot better. Okay, I don't work in Python. I worked in Python though, but I don't work actively in Python right now. I work in Java. Lot of big companies are Java shops. They have a lot of code base in Java, and it's going. Java's popularity is like kind of like a wave. Sometimes it goes up, sometimes it comes down, but it has been like the one of the top three languages since like last 20 years, maybe more than that, since the time Java came in the market. So you should know these things because object-oriented programming is very well written in Java or even in C++. So if you know that, then in implementing the same thing in Python is a very nice thing. Programming language that sorts it out. And now the most important thing is you should know data structure and algorithms. You should know it very nicely, okay? Because some of the most complex systems in the world are built using the most simplest of data structures. That's what I learned when I came to LinkedIn. The system may look like a mesh of a lot of things which are happening, but at its core, it is a simple graph traversal algorithm.
Right. And I think just to prove that point, right, like if you use Google Maps, that's actually like traveling sales problem that you might have seen in your algorithm, but you might not pay that much attention because it's the name is bad and the algorithm is just like a little bit confusing, but the applications are huge. Even in GPT, there's something called A star search algorithm that's been used. Again, you learn A star as like an algorithm, but you'd never know the implications of it. So I think we would highly recommend people going for data science and algorithm to kind of go to GPT and try to understand the motivation, the intuition behind how the algorithm is formed and what are the real world applications. Because sometimes knowing the real world application lets you learn the algorithm a little bit more intuitively. And the more intuitively you learn an algorithm, the better you understand it as compared to just mugging up because you cannot mug up 150 lines of code. So again, in interview, it's like the interviewer will always try to see how your intuition is in terms of algorithm. The person will never try to see if you know the algorithm in and out. They might in some cases if you're a systems engineer or if you're a hardcore engineer, but for a programmer, I feel intuition is much more important than actually writing same lines of code because right now I can find the same lines of code on the web as well. So
yeah, exactly. Yeah. I mean, it that totally sums it up. That's very nice summary of it. Intuition as well as the application of the same algorithm in the real world context. For example, as you very rightly brought up the Google Maps problem, right? It's a traveling salesperson problem, which is a graph problem. So at the core, it is a graph traversal problem itself. Like it's a DFS maybe. So something like a DFS, not exactly like a DFS, but that's what it is. Like the whole world, you have to think about. For example, think about this: like you connecting to people. You have a lot of people, and on LinkedIn, you see this person is your second degree connection, third degree connection. How is that done? It's a graph problem. It's a simple graph problem. Splitwise, if you have worked with Splitwise as a software, it's a very simple graph problem. The algorithm may not be more than 400 lines of code. Okay.
right.
So that's the back end of Splitwise as a software. Now it's getting complicated with all the ads and introduction and payments and stuff. But the core algorithm, I gave you some money, you put it on Splitwise that, hey, let's say you owe me whatever, 10 rupees or something. It's a simple bi-directional graph problem. So what I'm trying to say here is, yeah, and for the students, just try and come up with such software of your own. Like you don't have to write the UI, but maybe the backend, right? If you are interested in backend. And if you know a friend of yours, who likes to work on front end, let him do the front end, you do the back end. There you have your a splitwise of your own.
Right.
And you know what? It is very easy to release. If let's say you come up with an Android app, for example, okay, it is very easy to release your own Android app on Play Store, so you can have like a working product around it.
Right.
And you can ask your friends that, hey guys, I mean, we came up with this, just try and use it. And you can have like a, I don't know, good 50, 100 members around them. And yeah, that's a very good thing which you can write on your resume that, hey, we come up with this Play Store app and, it had like a whatever, 100 downloads, 500 downloads.
Exactly.
Think about it. When you apply to universities or when you even apply to companies, you have a tangible product which you develop. That's such a nice thing to have.
Yeah, I think projects are much more important than any other thing that you have on your resume. I
Exactly.
think, I think if you can showcase, like I think ideation is very easy.
Mhm.
People have a lot of ideas over the days, but executing it and making sure you have that patience to push that in production with all the issues without expecting any fruit in return. I think that's what showcases in your resume.
Yeah.
And I think we can talk a lot. I think we'll spend a whole day talking about applications of like algorithms and how we didn't
Hmm.
know about what exactly is used. But I think just to come back a little bit on, let's say अगर कोई थर्ड ईयर में है, फोर्थ ईयर में है,
Mhm.
वो इंटरव्यू के लिए प्रिपेयर कर रहा है, व्हाट आर सम रिसोर्सेज दैट यू वुड रिकमेंड दैट पर्सन टू गो इन एंड लुक
Yeah.
फॉर?
Yeah. First of all, for the language, go to tutorials point. It's a very simple portal, and it has all the basic things which you need to learn about a language. Tutorials point is a place to go. At least in my experience, it has helped me a lot. uh, that is for learning the languages as well as some of the technologies, for example operating system. Oh, by the way, one more thing to on the interview front, you should know some of the core computer science subject when when you want to apply for computer science job. Those are operating systems, networking, database management systems, data structures. Let's say you some universities have two versions of data structure, 1 and 2. Both the data structures, um, algorithms, very very important. And let's say if you're interested into machine learning jobs and stuff, maybe machine learning's data analytics, data warehousing, and all of these things. If you, let's say, wonder if you are just looking for some core fundamental back-end jobs or front-end jobs, then these are the ones. For the front-end people, one more subject which I would recommend is the HCI, human computer
All
interaction,
right.
or the JavaScript, if you have like a dedicated subject around it. That said, preparing for languages, I already said tutorials point is like the place to go. Learn the language, have the basics in your pocket, and once you have that, uh, I believe the more coding you do, the better you get at it. So for that you need to practice, and the practice comes from one of the website which I immediately think about is HackerRank, because HackerRank has very nice problem statements, uh, where you can just implement the algorithm or the data structure which you have learned for and have a working code around it, and it runs it against like numerous test cases. And if, let's say, some of the test cases, edge cases, are failing, then you can improve your code. So what I have seen is, like, in the first go nobody gets it right. Okay. In fact, I I never got like my code running in like the first go for most of the times. Okay. So but after a point you sort of learn, you get the experience that's how does some of the edge cases may look like. And then once you know that, then you can write your code in a better way to adjust those test cases preemptively in your code. So when you're interviewing, let's say, okay, this is a very good interviewing tip which I hoped I would have got when I was interviewing back in the days. Okay, you should be in a position to come up with some of the edge cases on your own. And if you are, make sure that you communicate that, hey, I'm writing this code and this is the one of the potential edge cases which I'm anticipating for this problem. If you yourself preemptively tell the interviewer would like it. That you think about it, he'll get an impression that, hey, this guy is looking at an end-to-end solution with all of the edge cases and trying to address them. Now, does it mean that, let's say, you miss one or two, will that be like a complete, you know bad or something? No. But it's always good to talk it out. From it should come from you, and once it comes from you, that's a great thing. Okay. So hacker rank. Okay. Lead code is one of the very famous platforms. There you have the company wise segregation of the codes. Like, for example, lately Google is asking for these 40, 50, 100 questions, whatever. So you can go to lead code and prepare for them company wise. Let's say if you have an interview lined up, if you want to like prepare for the coding stuff, then lead code has that a blind 75 or something like that. So they have a list of problems, 75 different problems which are being bucketed according to different types of problems which are being asked in the interview. That is a great place to prepare for interview. By the way, neat code, there is this guy, a YouTuber called Neat Code, who is doing a fantastic job. uh, he was not there when I was doing my engineering, but I totally wished he would. If he would have been there, he would have made my life so much easier. But thankfully for the folks who are right now preparing, they have that platform. So NeetCode came up with like a good list of 150 questions, which is also being segregated by problems, by the types of problems. And also he has created like this nice graph on his website as to what sequence you should learn these things in.
Interesting.
So that's it. According to me, the 150 questions are fantastic resource, and you should not the whole 150 I would say, but you should know majority chunk of them, and if you know, then you should be good enough to appear for most of the interviews. Does it mean that okay, 150 are done, then now I'm like able to crack any interview? Probably not, but practicing around those 150, trying and uh, looking for variations of the same problems, as I said, looking for edge cases and stuff like that.
And I think a topic on edge cases, right? When I was doing this coding lead code पर तो मेरे को लगा था कि यार edge case पे क्यों इतना time waste कर रहे हैं? Like it's just like a very sad thing कि edge case अगर pass नहीं हुआ तो हमको interview के लिए बुलाते नहीं थे. So I was very frustrated with that. But now that I've spent some time in the industry, I now understand कि edge case का important क्या है. The importance of edge case is it helps you develop that mindset saying अगर कोई problem आया, it's very easy to implement it the first go, but have you thought about different edge cases? And the reason is a very simple problem. Let's say you have a data point which you don't really have right now. You will need to source it from some other system. रियल वर्ल्ड एग्जांपल बैंक में या किधर भी आप काम कर रहे हो, यहाँ पे आपके पास यू आर क्रिएटिंग अ रिपोर्ट, रिपोर्ट में एक डेटा पॉइंट है नहीं, एंड देन द सोल्यूशन इज गो टू अ डेटा सिस्टम एंड ट्राई सोर्सिंग द डेटा पॉइंट. नाउ इट्स वेरी इजी टू थिंक यार डेटा सोर्स तो ऊपर ही है, फटाक से लेके आओ वो टीम से. बट यू हैव टू थिंक अबाउट एज केसेस कि what will happen to the current schema, right? What if the number is negative? What kind of what kind of data type that should that column have, right? How does that column impact my other downstream? So I think ये mindset जो आता है, it comes first from experience and also from thinking about edge cases क्या है. So any problem you get is very easy to come up with a simple solution, but it's very important to think about edge cases and come up with a robust solution. Even though it's not the first solution, it's okay, but coming up with robust is more important than coming up with any solution.
Exactly. I'll give you a very great example about the edge cases. Okay. So for example, null checks are good, is a very preliminary and first edge case we should be doing for, especially in the lead code style of questions, that you have this method, it has like 3 parameters. The first edge case avoidance which you should do is check if any of the parameters which you are getting is null. Okay. Now it's a very simple thing and maybe it looks like a very trivial thing that hey kya karna padta hai. Okay, but think about it from a bigger standpoint. Like for example, in from my context, I'll tell you, I am working on, let's say, some of the very big components at LinkedIn. Okay, and let's say if there is a null pointer exception thrown somewhere, okay, it can result in breaking the whole LinkedIn as a system, I would tell you. Okay, so a little bit context on that. I was working on a component in the past which was responsible for all of the third party interactions which are being done through LinkedIn with the third parties. What third party means? All of the external websites or companies from LinkedIn. So when you are talking about a social media platform, you usually interact with a lot of third party systems, like you send data, you get data. You might have seen a lot of sign in using LinkedIn, like hey, sign in with LinkedIn. I worked on a part of that actually. It's called an OAuth system, but for that you have to send the user data from LinkedIn to third party. That's what the permission is for. When you click on that sign in with LinkedIn, it redirects you to a LinkedIn page, and there, hey, this website is trying to access your profile data, do you approve this action? Approve, and then your data is sent there. So there was this team who are working with Azure. Okay, Azure as in the cloud provider, Microsoft. Okay, and they had some integration with Azure, and they were sending some data to Azure for their use case, whatever use case maybe, I don't know, but I was an on call at the time, and they came and they immediately started seeing a lot of failures, and I was being drawn at like late night, very late night actually, 3 a.m. in the morning, because it has revenue implications. Okay, so I was drawn to this group, and they had a revenue meter that hey, right till now in the last 2 hours we have lost $5 million. Wow. $7 million in the next 15 minutes. $9 million in the next 15 minutes. Okay, so the revenue pointer was going up, and I was like totally stressed out. What's happening? I checked in. I saw that hey, what's up with this? So I saw that from the logs, it was clear that Azure system was failing. From on our end, we are sending the request rightly, but Azure system is failing, so we are not never getting anything back from Azure. So I asked them that hey, this looks like to be the Azure failure. Maybe too much details for this context, but it's a very nice one. Okay, so I asked the engineers that hey, I think you should escalate it with Microsoft, because there may be some failure on their side. They talked to them immediately, and they identified it was a null pointer exception. Wow. Think about that. A small one line code. They reverted the version, they addressed the issue, and they released a new version, and the issue was solved. But think about the revenue implications of that, and this happens all the time. That's what on calls are for. That's what um, like all of the things which happens around. So it's a very trivial thing, a very maybe it that's what a bug is called. This is a
Right.
bug, an example of bug which you need to resolve. So in our case, this was not on me, thankfully. I was totally concerned that okay, if this is coming from my system at 3 a.m. in the morning, I was in no shape to like even do anything about it. But and the revenue meter was going up, so it was such a mess. But thankfully, it got resolved. So yeah, null pointers can get you into a lot of trouble. And similarly, not just null pointer, but all of the edge cases if those are not addressed correctly.
Okay, now that we've covered bachelor's, job, I think the next part is more about how do you prepare for masters. Masters के लिए कैसे prepare करना है in terms of GRE, LOR, SOPs. How did you think about that? Job करते करते तूने वो सारी चीज कैसे prepare की? Did you use any services? So can you expand a bit more on that?
Absolutely, yes. So हमारे टाइम में in 2019, okay, GRE was a mandatory aptitude test जो लेनी पड़ती है. अभी right now it is not mandatory exam. Some universities may ask for it like in on a compulsory basis कि GRE score चाहिए कुछ universities को, but not all universities. In fact, most of the universities don't want it. Technically, it is good to have, but it will not make or break your game in any way. Okay? It can break your game अगर let's say कि उनका let's say एक set standard है और तुम्हारा score अगर बहुत कम है, then it will not be a good sign. पर अगर तुम्हारा स्कोर अच्छा है बहुत है उनके क्राइटेरिया के ऊपर है तो इट विल नॉट बी लाइक अ गेम चेंजर. इट विल बी लाइक टेकन इनटू कंसीडरेशन कि जीआरई भी सही है तो एप्टीट्यूड इज सेट. दैट इज अबाउट जीआरई. So it is totally optional. If you want to give, it's a good thing. If you don't want to give, no problems. Okay. Um, Now English tests, right? TOEFL, IELTS, and Duolingo. There are three of those. हमारे टाइम में डुओलिंगो नहीं हुआ करती थी, just TOEFL and IELTS. Mostly TOEFL for US and for rest of the I don't know countries, Canada वगैरह.
Right.
They used to they still assess on IELTS. They take IELTS into consideration. So इसका preparation, I would say it's a very simple exam because it sort of tests your English aptitude. Can you write English? Can you read English? Can you speak English? Can you understand
walk
English?
Right.
I can talk English. I can walk English. Yeah, that exact thing. हाँ. So उसकी प्रैक्टिस लगती है in a way to understand what the exam is about, what they want from you in the exam. Like वो किन चीज़ों को consideration में रखेंगे when they'll be assessing you. But that should not be like too big of a deal. Let's say if अगर तुम थोड़ा सा इंग्लिश कंटेंट फॉलो करते हो, थोड़ा लोगों को सुनते हो जो लेट्स से कि मतलब न्यूज़ हुए या फिर मूवीज़ हुए या फिर एनीथिंग लाइक इवन कॉन्वर्जेशन अगर तुम आपस में करते हो प्रिलिमिनरी इंग्लिश कॉन्वर्जेशन में, एज लॉन्ग एज इट इज़ कॉम्प्रिहेंसिबल इंग्लिश की तुम्हारी बातें अच्छी हो रही है. एंड फनी पार्ट इज कि मैं ये हिंदी में बोल रहा हूँ, रेस्ट ऑफ द थिंग्स इंग्लिश में बोला, राइट? ओके. सो if you can talk well in English, if you can understand what people are talking to you about, if you can write decent English, and if you can read English, you are set. So I would say कि for TOEFL ETS की official guide आती है. Okay, for TOEFL preparation, do that. And let's say there can be some third party English TOEFL preparation guides जैसे कि Manhattan की आती है एक. That's the one thing one resource which I can immediately remember.
Magoosh was one.
Magoosh, yes,
Yeah.
Magoosh is like one of the other resource. Magoosh थोड़ा GRE specific था. Those guys were like very fixated on words, but it was very interactive platform, so I used to love it. So ये दो तीन platforms अगर हमने मतलब कर लिया है, I think it should be good. The trickiest part is जहाँ तक मुझे याद आ रहा है, it was reading, writing, listening. Listening was the trickier part क्योंकि उस oh wait no, speaking was the trickier part. Sorry, my bad. Speaking was the trickier part क्योंकि उसमें I believe तुम्हारे पास set seconds होते हैं, 30 seconds या 1 minute का एक ऐसा pitch तुम्हें तैयार करना पड़ता है. And they give you a topic, and then what you need to do is you need to talk about it in those 1 minute. And वो हार्ड कट कर देते हैं कि वो शुरू होता है ऑन अ बीप end होता है on a beep and you have to complete your whole speech in those many seconds or minutes, whatever it was, I don't remember exactly. वो थोड़ा सा ट्रिकी बन जाता है एट टाइम्स, बट विथ डिसेंट अमाउंट ऑफ प्रैक्टिस, लेट्स से यू, मैं क्या करता था इस केस में, आई हैड अ वेरी सेट स्क्रिप्ट, ओके, एंड इसके में तो 3 या 4 स्पीचेस बनाने पड़ते हैं थ्रू द टॉफल एग्जाम. IELTS में you have to physically talk to an interviewer, so that is
Right.
a little bit better. But IELTS में अलग challenges है कि IELTS थोड़ी सी difficult है as compared to TOEFL. ये सुनी सुनाई बात है, so I'm not too sure about this, but that's what I've heard from the friends who have given IELTS. Okay, but coming back to TOEFL जो मैंने दी थी, for the speaking मैंने क्या किया था, मैं स्पीकिंग का एक थीम बना के रखा था कि उस स्पीकिंग्स में कैटेगरीज है. नाउ आई एग्जैक्टली डोंट रिमेंबर द एग्जैक्ट कैटेगरीज, बट कुछ कैटेगरीज रहते हैं. सो इस कैटेगरी में माय स्पीच वुड लुक समथिंग लाइक दिस. तो मैंने ये किया था, बना के रख दिया था, तो मैं उसे लिख के रख देता था व्हेन आई वाज प्रिपेयरिंग. सो कैसा रहता है, वो तुम्हें टॉपिक देते हैं, देन तुम्हें कुछ सेकंड्स देते हैं फॉर प्रिपेयरिंग, एंड देन यू हैव टू टॉक. सो उस टाइम में मैं वो लिख के रख देता था, लाइक फिल इन द ब्लैंक्स, ओके, इन द प्री प्रिपरेशन, बिकॉज ब्रेक के बाद होता था, तो ब्रेक के बाद तुम्हारे पास कुछ सेकंड्स टू सम मिनट्स होते थे. So I used to do that. And जब टॉपिक आएगा, so I used to just fill in the blanks in some way, or let's say improvise, because it's all about being conversational, so
Right.
to say, right? So अगर तुमने उसका मतलब ध्यान रख दिया, then I think TOEFL exam is very easy.
And TOEFL is out of like 120, right? So anything about 100 is a good enough score.
Is a great score.
Yeah, yeah.
Is a great score. Most of the universities are good with that. Again, the more you have, the better it is. The more reassuring it is for the universities that एक English speaking country में तुम survive कर लोगे.
And हमारे टाइम में ऐसे भी था कि if you score below 100, then it's still fine, but you have to take some kind of English prerequisite course in the college, right?
Yes.
कि ठीक है, अगर 100 से कम आया, 95, 98 आया, it's fine if you don't give it, but
Mhm.
college will recommend you taking some English prerequisite.
Yeah. So actually, that said, हर एक कॉलेज का क्राइटेरिया भी 100 नहीं हुआ करता था. Somewhere, you know, had a hard criteria of 85, 89, 95. So different criteria for different universities. And अगर तुम्हारा TOEFL का स्कोर कम है, that doesn't mean that you're out of the game. You can just apply, and let's say if you're a good enough candidate, then they can just come back and tell you that, hey, your English score is the concern. So if you can give the English exam again and get the score above, let's say, I don't know, 95, maybe 100, then you have an admit. Okay. This happened to one of my good friends. So उनका स्कोर 91 था, आई बिलीव, एंड उनको जो यूनिवर्सिटी थी उन्हें 95 से ऊपर चाहिए था. सो दे जस्ट केम बैक एंड दे टोल्ड हिम इन द एडमिट लेटर इटसेल्फ कि
Okay.
ये एडमिट इनवैलिड हो जाएगा अगर तुम्हारा स्कोर इससे ऊपर नहीं आया. तो उसने ही रीअपियर्ड फॉर द TOEFL एग्जाम एंड he got the score, and he did his education from the very same university. Okay, so वो हुआ TOEFL का. Out of all the three, from my uh, experience talking to a lot of folks, I think Duolingo is the easiest one. Duolingo is the cheapest one. Duolingo is the one which gets you the result at the earliest. TOEFL का as well as IELTS का result आने को भी time लगता है. And Duolingo is being conducted on the app. Not every university accepts Duolingo, so you have to go and see for their requirements. But अगर accept करती है, so that can be a good option. It's like a $50 exam, I believe, against like IELTS and TOEFL, जो कि at least हमारे टाइम में ये प्राइस हुआ करता था. IELTS and TOEFL का it was like $120-$130 or something close to that. So worth checking out. And Duolingo में you can practice it in a very intuitive way. और मतलब yeah, it's a nice exam. It's a smaller exam than TOEFL. TOEFL 3-4 घंटे की होती है. You have to go to a center. You have to
Right.
Duolingo में शायद से वो चीज़ें नहीं होती है.
And I think like coming back to, let's say abhi that's for TOEFL, right? Abhi GRE, I think there are 3 sections. I don't think if it has changed, but 3 I think one is essay writing, second is verbal, and third is quant, right?
Yes.
And it's out of 330 or 340.
340, yes.
So how did you, like, I think for people in India or people where English is not the native language, the most difficult part is verbal and essay, right?
Yeah.
So how did you approach that?
Fantastic. Yes. Good that you touched upon GRE, because I totally forgot about it, given that GRE was optional anyways. So GRE is an exam which is assessed out of 340, जिसमें ऐसे का स्कोर नहीं इंक्लूड होता है. ऐसे का एक अलग स्कोर आता है, आई बिलीव इट इज
out of 5.
Yeah, out of 5, yes. So GRE का essay is a tricky part. Okay, GRE का essay is like, it's an abstract statement which is given to you, and you have to write, like, you know, expand on that idea. It can be simpler, it can be really complicated, but essay ka preparation, I'll come to that at the very end. First, let's start with the easiest one of all for most of us, which is quant. Not for all of us though. I know a few people जिनको quant मुश्किल जाता है, but verbal easy जाता है.
People who take biology basically आपको थोड़ा
Biology
सा
या
हाँ
फिर the people who are proficient in, let's say, like MBAs for example, वो लोगों के लिए जैसे मार्केटिंग में जो लोग अप्लाई करते हैं या फिर stuff like that, there are a plethora of options to apply for, by the way, and that can be a good conversation in the future. So काफ़ी लोगों के लिए quant easy रहता है, verbal hard रहता है. So let's keep that in mind as well when we are talking about quants. So quants is a basic mathematics aptitude test जिसमें तुम्हारे एकदम बेयरबोन बेसिक्स तुम्हारे एसेस किए जाते हैं. एंड जीआरई इज अ अडाप्टिव टेस्ट. सो जीआरई में विथ एवरी राइट क्वेश्चन यू गेट, your exams keep getting harder and harder. There are a total of 40 questions divided into two sections. So 40 questions, two sections for quant and two sections for verbal. That gets you a total of 80 questions and 1 point per question, 1 mark per question, so to say. So technically GRE should be out of 80 and not out of 340, because the lowest score you can get is 260. अगर तुम्हारा एक भी क्वेश्चन सही नहीं है, then you get a score of 260 and whatever, let's say तुम्हारा ऐसे का स्कोर होगा वो. Okay, so that's that. क्वांट के प्रिपरेशन के लिए there are a few resources. ETS official guide is the first resource. Manhattan 5 pounds is another resource, and Magush, as we talked about, that is one of the other good resource. Okay. um, how to prepare for quant specifically: pick up a topic, read about the topic, because GRE has very specific criteria as to what they will be assessing you it, and वो उसके दायरे के बाहर कभी नहीं जाते वो, कि ऐसा नहीं कि आउट ऑफ सिलेबस क्वेश्चन आ गया. इट नेवर हैपेंस इन GRE. ओके. सो एक सेट कॉन्टेक्स्ट होता है हर क्वेश्चन का. नाउ डज इट मीन दैट वो क्वेश्चन में ट्रिक इंट्रोड्यूस करेंगे? यस, दे डू दैट, स्पेशली फॉर द हार्डर पार्ट्स ऑफ द for the this GRE thing, मतलब for other parts of the exam. So वो एक सेट क्राइटेरिया डिफाइन करते हैं एंड देन उस क्राइटेरिया में वो क्वेश्चंस पूछते हैं. फॉर एग्जांपल इफ यू आर लुकिंग एट ज्योमेट्री, सो ज्योमेट्री में वो एक सेट रूल्स नहीं, एक सिलेबस होगा ना, उसके अराउंड क्वेश्चन होंगे. सो the book which helped me the most was the Manhattan 5 pounds book. It's like a huge book, like this giant book.
5 pound.
Yeah, 5 pounds book. 2 kilo की book है वो, right? And it has all the topics and let's say thousands of questions around collectively for all the topics. Okay. उसमें टॉपिक वाइज सेग्रीगेट किया है. उसमें दोनों है जी, वर्बल एंड कॉन्ट, बोथ द सेक्शंस आर देयर. एंड उसमें टॉपिक वाइज उन्होंने डिवाइड किया है, जैसे कि टॉपिक नंबर 1, एंड देन उन्होंने पहले उसमें बताते हैं कि ये मतलब थियरी है थोड़ा सा अबाउट द टॉपिक, एंड देन दे स्टार्ट विद द क्वेश्चन एंड इट्स आल्सो अडॉप्टिव. लाइक फॉर एग्जांपल लेट्स से फॉर वन पर्टिकुलर टॉपिक दे हैव 40 क्वेश्चंस, 50 क्वेश्चन जो भी हो गए, दे विल स्टार्ट विद द इजीएस्ट वन, जो कि सबसे इंट्यूटिव है, देखते बराबर आंसर आ जाए. ओके. And for the later ones, the questions getting harder till like when you are on the 50th question, that may be the hardest question of all. Okay. It's a fantastic book to prepare from, and it sets a very right context of what to expect from the GRE from that particular topic. Same for like all of the topics, just keep on preparing for all.
Right.
And GRE में एक important pointer है, when you're preparing for GRE, this I should have said at the end, but now that we are touched upon that, give the sample tests for GRE as much as you can. I would recommend like 5 to 7 tests, best case scenario 10 tests and beyond. Okay. So keep it as a time test. You don't have to like be somewhere and do, but start your timer and start writing the test. You can have that, there are a lot of online platforms, I'm forgetting the names, but you can give the test online and it will be like how the actual test will come up, so you will get like a real idea of what the actual GRE exam, what to expect from a GRE exam from when you're giving it in the center. I believe ETS comes with
ETS, right.
a few
Two mocks, right.
Yeah, a few mock tests as well. So those are the two mock tests you should absolutely give. Okay. At any cost. Yeah, that said about the preparation on that. And talking about verbal preparation is a very tricky one. Okay. So for the verbal preparation, I struggle with it, because verbal is very contextual. You have to have a lot of practice on reading things. So what you can do is you can pre-prepare for the exam by starting to read about things, because I've seen that when I was trying to prepare, when I was preparing for the exam, and also like the present, like modern day generation, today's generation as well, who are preparing for the exams, we have very less practice on reading about things. We have, you know, न्यूज़ सुन लेते हैं, रील्स पे देख लेते हैं, या फिर यू नो मूवीज देख लेते हैं, सुन लेते हैं, बुक्स थोड़ा कम पढ़ी जाती है, राइट? एंड व्हेन इट कम्स टू लाइक जीआरई इंग्लिश इज वेरी कॉन्टेक्स्ट सेंट्रिक इंग्लिश, सो टू से। सो उसमें जो तुम्हें पैसेजेस रहते हैं, तो द कॉन्ट्स में भी दो चीज़ें रहती है। वन इज लाइक द सेंटेंस कंप्लीशन एंड द अदर वन इज द रीडिंग कॉम्प्रिहेंशन। ओके, आउट ऑफ द टू, इन माई एक्सपीरियंस रीडिंग कॉम्प्रिहेंशन वॉज स्टिल द सिंपलर वन, क्योंकि एक पैसेज दिया रहेगा एंड कुछ क्वेश्चंस आएंगे उस पैसेज पे। सो द पैसेज इज वेरी ट्रिकी. You have to have a lot of practice around reading. One good thing which helped me a lot was to read newspapers. Okay, I used to read the Guardian and I believe the Atlantic at the time, and these two were like good enough. Or it's not even like newspaper, but some contextual thing which will be out of your comfort zone. For example, I was a computer science student and engineering student, so I had a lot of context around engineering. But the passage will be about history. What will you do then? Or it's about medical sciences. What will you do? You have to really get into the zone of reading it. At least I struggled with that.
Right.
So I prepared for that in a way that I was reading like 2-3 passages a day, and that made me get in the right mindset to understand the topics which were not in my comfort zone, at least get a very high level picture about it, even though I was not at all aware of what is going on. Right. It can be a social, like social picture, like some protests happening somewhere, or some economics crisis. Economics is a very good one. Usually in the GRE exams and a lot of mocks I given, history is one of the very popular ones. So history is always asked. Get in the right zone, try and read it and try and think about it, that ये कहना क्या चाहता है इस particular article में. It's very important. So when you get in this habit of reading like 2-3 passages a day, first of all उस तुम्हारा टाइमिंग इंप्रूव होता है. तुम्हें वो रीड करने के लिए जितना टाइम लगता है ना, द टाइम इज वेरी लिमिटेड इन जीआरई एग्जाम, राइट? सो अगर तुम्हें एक पैसेज रीड करने को लेसे 5 मिनट लग गया और 7 मिनट, वो आई डोंट नो द एग्जैक्ट टाइम, बट लेट्स से इफ यू स्पेंड अप अ लॉट ऑफ टाइम व्हाइल रीडिंग द पैसेज, you lose a lot of valuable time which you can use in the sentence completion zone. Right. Okay, so so get into that habit, that start reading about 1 or 2 passages a day. That would help you in the long run. Second, again, the same thing which happened, which I talked about in quant, try and practice more on these as well. Like for example, अगर तुम्हें passages दिया है, Manhattan 5 points और ETS official guide, पैसेज लो, पढ़ो, आंसर्स करने की कोशिश करो, पैसेज लो, पढ़ो, आंसर करने की कोशिश करो. इवन सेम थिंग है जो 5 पॉइंट्स में जो उन्होंने कॉन्ट के लिए किया है, सेम विद द पैसेजेस. द मोर पैसेजेस यू सॉल्व, द हार्डर द पैसेजेस गेट, द मोर डिफिकल्ट इट इज फॉर यू टू बिल्ड अ कॉन्टेक्स्ट. एंड जीआरई में क्रूशियल भी होता है, देयर आर अ लॉट ऑफ वर्ड्स. हम इतने सारे कॉन्वर्जेशनल इंग्लिश में वर्ड्स यूज नहीं करते, बट टू सम एक्सटेंट आई हैव सीन दैट when you're coming to an English speaking country, you have to have a good knowledge base around the words. क्योंकि let's say तुम किसी very proficient English speaker से बात कर रहे हो, for him it is an everyday word,
Right.
but for you it is not. So
what about AWA? How should one think about AWA? Because that's like essay writing जो हम usually करते नहीं है in engineering. So the last time we did any kind of essay writing was I think 10th standard or 11th 12th. But after that 4 साल का break लेके how do you prepare for that?
Oh, it is very tricky. AWA मेरे, that's why I kept it for the last. So incrementally देखा हमने. Quant maybe very easier to prepare, very relevant. Verbal थोड़ा सा tricky. AWA the trickiest of all. Okay, AWA is very important. AWA काफ़ी देखा जाता है. एंड अगर तुम्हारा AWA स्कोर लेट्स से 2.5 है ऑफ लेट्स से 4 या 5 का टोटल मार्किंग रहता है, आई डोंट एक्जैक्टली नो, बट इट्स लेस ऑन द लेसर एंड, स्टिल तुम्हें एडमिशन नहीं मिलता है. ओके, एटलीस्ट हमारे टाइम पे जब जीआरई कंपलसरी था तो AWA का स्कोर शुड हैव बीन लाइक एटलीस्ट गुड इनफ, जो हम हमेशा बात करते रहे. 3 इज लाइक द बेयर मिनिमम, 3.5 फाइन, 4 गुड, 4.5 ग्रेट, 5 गॉड टियर, बहुत बढ़िया, क्या बात है. ओके, सो दैट्स दैट. AWA इज अ वेरी इंटरेस्टिंग थिंग, क्योंकि AWA के टॉपिक्स जो रहते हैं वो नॉर्मल ऐसे जैसे टॉपिक नहीं रहते. AWA के टॉपिक्स बहुत थॉट प्रोवोकिंग टॉपिक्स रहते हैं. ओके, they want to understand how you think, how you present your thought process on a paper. And matlab that's like the overall context of this, that how can you, it's usually, sometimes it's an argument, sometimes it's like a statement, sometimes it can be something entirely different. Jo matlab I'm not fully, but one of the AWO topics, for example, can be, usually competitions are considered a negative thing in a society, in some societies, and some societies consider it positive, something like that. It's like a statement. Now you have to elaborate on that statement with some viewpoints. Now how can you do that? First of all, start with like the first paragraph of it is like explanation, like extending that idea into something concrete. You can think about this, like for example, कुछ cultures में competitions are an inherent part of the society because of the society's demographics. For example, thinking about places, for example, as I said, right? So this is how I would have written this very practically. I had like a score of 4 in my AWA, which is like fine. I like just good score. Okay. uh, and I was very proud of that, like extremely proud of the score. I'm okay. So think about this as like extend, for example, English, India as a society. India as a society, because of the sheer amount of population and people opting for different careers and want to, do better in their life, competition is an inherent part. Is it a good thing? I would say it is a good thing because it pushes you to your limits. But is it a bad thing? Bad thing, yes, because you have a lot of societal problems which comes with it. Like for example, a lot of expectations from the families. For example, um, you putting pressure on yourself that I'm not good enough because I was not able to write that exam well. And you can have a bad day. There can be a zillion reasons for you not being able to perform. Let's say, it can be a very open argument. So explaining the argument, putting in the advantages, talking with the arguments, talking against the argument. So keeping up your thoughts on the paper in a way that it can be showcased as an argument. This person is trying to make argument that, and in the end, the conclusion, what do you
Right.
think about this? Is competition good or bad? Whatever the conclusion may be, you can be like, yeah, let's say if there is not much competition, it can have a lot of creative, the people can have a lot of space to think creatively about things because they don't have to think about competing with someone. Whereas if you have competition in the society, then uh, you can think about it in a way that it pushes a lot of people to do better and better. For example,
Right.
thinking about cricket as a sport, there is a lot of competition, right? But that's what makes India team such a great cricketing, India as a great cricketing nation, because we have a lot of competition. If there would not have been a lot of competition, we would not have been so good in cricket,
Right.
right? So something like that. It's an argument after all. And Indian, it concludes with
Your opinion
your
of what
opinion
you
of
think.
it. That's like a general structure of the essay. There are some set word limits, and essentially you need to extend the idea and put on some advantages and disadvantages. So that's like a general theme about how to write an AWA.
So format you say would be like 3 paragraphs. First paragraph is expanding what the
Four
topic
paragraphs.
is.
Yeah,
Okay.
four
And
paragraphs.
for second is advantages, third disadvantages, and fourth is what you think about that particular topic.
Precisely.
Okay,
Yeah.
got it.
It can be a neutral opinion as well. I think
Okay.
there should be somewhat competition, but not too much that
Right.
your population is killing itself. Not to say in the exact same words I said, like killing itself and all. No, but somewhat of a making an argument around it.
Right.
So that's what AWA is about. Yeah.
Got it. And in terms of, let's say, coming back to statement of purpose, which is also considered one of the very important document that can either make or break your application, where people say that, hey, अगर तेरे को GPA अच्छा नहीं आया है, that's okay, that's fine. But if your statement of purpose is strong enough to prove a point that, like, when college look at your application, they try to see that ये बंदा आगे जाके कुछ करेगा क्या, right? And like they want the alumni to shine in the world, and GPA is one of the things, but also statement of purpose is more like resume on steroids, right?
Yes,
So
yes.
what would you, like, how did you prepare your SOPs?
SOP, okay. SOP is very, very important. SOP is like, it's as important as your transcript, mark sheet. Yeah. Um, think about it in a way. SOP is like you standing in front of the admission committee and telling them, this is why you should give me that admission. This is what I would bring to the table. This is my existing work which showcase for itself, and this is where I want to be after I get that degree. Okay. Essentially, statement of purpose. The name, as the name suggests, what is your purpose of getting in here? You should be able to articulate that purpose. It can be a very simple purpose, like, hey, I want to get in the country and I want to do some job, create an impact, work for some impactful companies, and with an attempt to change the world. Or it can be something even beyond that, like, I would like to do some very concrete research on so and so areas, and the university has the uh, infrastructure, the professors, and the crowd which can help me get into that research and extend my expertise uh, beyond what I have right now. So think about statement of purpose as you standing in front of them, and you have 5 minutes of talking to the admission committee and telling them why they should give you that admission. Okay.
Got it.
It should not feel like, and that's why I'm a very big firm believer that statement of purpose should not be written by someone else but you, at least the first draft of it, and then eventually you can improvise, you can make it better.
Right.
Okay, there is no such thing as a perfect statement of purpose, but because it is your purpose, because it is you who is talking to the committee, you should have a very clear idea on what you want it to be. So resume on steroids, yes, but it should not be like entire resume reflected in
Right.
terms of words, because some statement of purpose can be like that hey, I did this project, I worked here at that's on your resume.
Right.
Talk about your accomplishments, which let's say not even the accomplishments but how you got to that accomplishment. For example, you got some award when you were working.
Right.
Talk about my so and so contributions with the help of blah blah blah. I got this accomplishment. Talk about the struggles which you have overcome, right? When you are working, when you are in hackathon, when you are somewhere else, as to how talk about, like, for example, talk about um, the struggles, like as I said.
So now, what are some top three things that if you look back, you think यार bachelor's में मैंने ये तीन चीज किया because of which my statement of purpose has been amplified. So what are those top three things?
Yeah, that's very nice. Yeah. So I would say the top three things is uh, sometimes, in our university undergrad, we had a lot of electives, and I was very, not very, but like I was somewhat particular about picking up the right electives for myself. Um, so I highlighted on those points that, hey, I chose this elective because I was interested in that particular aspect of computer science, and that helped me in a way to get here where I am. Or those electives are essentially, I would like to extend my knowledge, I would like to go deeper into them. This university precisely has the kind of coursework which can help me learn more about them. That can be one of the things, that was like one of the things which I highlighted. Second one was the projects and the hackathons which I did. Having a hands-on experience is always a big plus, and you should always include them, you should always talk about them, and you should flaunt. SOP is about talking about your achievements, talking about what hardships you overcame while achieving the the project at hand, and and talk about people skills as well. Sometimes the art of collaborations and stuff, you should just put these things into it, that it's not just about writing the code, it's about everything else which comes with it. That can be SOP. So my projects which I put on the resume, I just extended them and talked about the hardships and the challenges which I faced. The third thing is very important: research. Usually masters is a specialized degree. Masters is a degree where a lot of people expects you to come with the basics and the fundamentals of the subject. You already have that, so no one is going to touch upon, like, hey, this is how an diagram is drawn when you're talking about a database systems. They will already know that, hey, you know that. Okay, you know what a NoSQL database is, you know what a traditional database is, you know what a document database is. Now you have to research about, let's say, the storage of the database, or how these systems are being built internally, or how you can use these systems to create like giant applications, or whatever it may be, anything. But a specialized thing for example, research. You have done some particular research about cloud. Okay?
Right.
Talk about them. If you have some papers, talk about those things, because those things are gonna help you. Those things are gonna be very attractive when it talks about when it is on your recipe. So long story short, talk about your achievements, talk about what challenges you face, talked about the conferences where, let's say, if you talked in some conferences when you're publishing the papers, yeah, just put it on there, that some of the questions which, let's say, some influential in my case it happened actually, that someone asked me a very crucial questions, which was like a point where I had to ask myself that question, that I never thought about this.
What was that about?
It was kind of like, okay, it was a philosophical question. It was not related to the field or anything as such, but it was more like, it's good that you are doing technology, but you will always have to ask yourself this question, that what implications these technologies will have and how you can be a part of it. Right, this was a philosophical question, because I had to think about it in a way that I'm doing these projects, all of these, crazy technology things, and I need to write the papers and so. But what is the long-term goal which I would like to achieve? And I put in this very statement exactly as it is, as an opener in my SOP, that someone talked about this and to me, and it came to me as a realization that I need to ask this question. And towards the end of my SOP, I I finished it off in a way that I think I know the answer, but for that I need to be here and have this much expertise in the subject which which I have learned during my bachelor's degree, so that I can contribute positively to the world.
So it's more like, it's not just about what and how you did your bachelor's, but it's all about why did you do it, right?
Mhm.
Because, and this is also applied in your job as well, where a lot of times we start doing things, or we are on projects where we don't really know the aim of it,
Yeah.
or the goal for it. And that's why people come up with different frameworks like OKRs, objective and key results, where they're like, okay, what's the business outcome? And based on the business outcome, let's work backwards and try to see what projects are actually required versus what's just for fun, right?
Exactly. So that's what SOP is. Why? Okay. Well, three questions are important: what, how, and why. Okay. You never talk about why on your resumes. You usually talk about what, sometimes about how, but why is the
Right.
thing which you talk about in your SOP. Because SOP, again, the same thing, this is how I think about SOP. I am standing in front of the committee and I'm speaking to them. I'm telling them, this is why I'm a good fit. This is why I want to be here. Okay.
Right.
As simple as, if you think about it, it is like you're delivering a speech. Okay. So when you deliver a speech, the context changes than when you're writing an essay. SOP is usually thought of as an essay. Yes, it is an essay. Okay. So don't think about like, I would like to be. Don't use language like that. But be a little bit, uh, essay-ish.
Right.
I don't know the right word for that. But still try and convey your thoughts into it, because if you do that, it will, the people who are assessing your SOP are experts in their field. They look at thousands of SOPs and they immediately know, understand, right then and there, that this is written by someone else, this is not authentic, this is whatever.
Right.
And if you are targeting top tier universities, top 50, I would say, oh, they instantly understand and know this thing, and it just does not look good. And it also comes down to you as a person, like, your
Right.
SOP, this is your life, you should write, you should be able to write about it. It's actually very interesting. If you want to write your story, would you be able to write that? Right?
Got
It's
it.
the same question. It's a philosophical one. I'm a philosophical person at my core. So sometimes I try and ask myself this question and try and get an answers to them. I don't have answers to a lot of them. Yeah.
But then, did you use any services or any coaching or any help in terms of like uh, SOPs or LR, or do you think people can still do it by themselves if they have enough time?
If, let's say, you have enough time, you can do it totally. I know a lot of folks who have done that. There is no problem with that. I joined the coaching honestly because I wanted someone to, you know to keep me accountable at times, because while working, it's sometimes difficult to be in the process always, keeping focus and keeping the track of deadlines and stuff. So those guys help me uh, keep a track of it. Always review, get your documents reviewed by multiple folks, because multiple people can have different perspectives and great ideas about improving your SOP. That's what some of my friends and my counselor, when they reviewed my SOP, they came up with like really good ideas on how I can improve. uh, Even on the language front, because we are not the best English speakers. We are good, okay, don't get me wrong, but we are not like the best articulate. We don't speak, I don't speak the best articulated English, okay. So sometimes it can be a little bit drag using the words like
Right.
basically, practically, patata.
Right.
That does not sound right. I mean, especially in the document so personalized and so important, you should not be like that. So that's where counselors come into picture. They usually assess your document very in a very intricate way, and they have their ways of uh, you know re- uh, up, telling you that, hey, how about if not this, then what? That's also a very important question. So they help you
Right.
with that question.
Right. And let's say after you do your LORs, SOPs, GREs, TOEFL, right? How do you approach university selection, right? Or like how like what kind of criteria do you take, or what kind of factors you take in mind when you're saying कि मेरे को यहाँ पे apply करना है, मेरे को यहाँ पे apply नहीं करना है?
Yeah, that's good. That's a very legit question which a lot of folks might have. That a lot of people usually, they what they do is they look at the US news ranking and some of the other portals which essentially rank the universities. First of all, don't look at generic ranking. If you're looking for rankings, look for specific course related ranking. For example, attempting to go to computer science, look for specific computer science ranking. The ranking might change drastically, okay. So if that's the criteria which you're looking for, honestly, that's not a very right place to start at, because in my experience, I've seen those ranking are determined by the amount of research which the university is conducting, okay, like the amount of papers, the amount of patents, the types of professors which the university have. Those are good pointers, by the way, don't get me wrong. If your sole purpose is to like go and do like in-depth research about a subject, and the university is just the kind of place for you, absolutely, that's what you look for. uh, but things are I mean, when you talk about picking up the university, you have to also determine your purpose while coming to the for coming to the states, right? Specifically in the states, but the rest of the countries, it also applies to the rest of the countries. The process might vary though for the applications. Like for example, Germany has some very specific things which needs to be done. Also for the UK and Australia, they have some different criterias and different types of admission processes. So, but I'll talk to US because I am in US. Okay, selecting the college. Determine your purpose. Okay, you have to know what is my purpose for coming to the states. If you want to work after your master's is done, which is the target for most of the folks, think about the universities which has the right kind of people who will be working. If you want to do research, think about the universities uh, who are good for the particular research subjects you want to conduct your research in. For example, let me take you through some very nice universities with extremely well, catered courses. Okay, CMU is one of the universities. Okay, CMU has fantastic courses, and even like surviving through the courses is um, very difficult and very fulfilling. It's a very hard course. So CSU Computer Science is one of the toughest computer sciences course, but a very fulfilling one. Even a 3 GPA is a great GPA in CMU, because just the sheer effort to survive the course is very high. But the amount of things which you learn from the degree is substantial. You know what? Some of the employers, they have a if you are in CMU and you have done some of the core CMU subjects, okay, I would not name them, but some of the core CMU subjects, they'll immediately give you the interview just because you have done that course and you have a so and so grade like B or B plus or whatever it can be. Beyond B is always an accepted criteria. Okay, so it's that impactful. If you want to do some research, let's say distributed system, CMU is is very famous for distributed system cloud computing, even machine learning. CMU is good for everything. So CMU is like a exceptional. It is usually ranked one or in amongst the top 1, 2, 3 consistently through the years. So that's that. But let's say if you think that, hey, I need to find a job, maybe CMU is not the kind of place. It's a kind of place. Don't get me wrong, but the time which you will get for your lead code preparations will be very less. You have to go like really above and beyond, given the sheer amount of hard work which you need to do during the coursework. So think about it in a very holistic way. At least I did. I picked a university. I had a multiple admits. I had like 4 admits. I picked ASU because ASU provided me with just the right amount of coursework hardships. So usually courses are divided, not like they don't have like a very concrete division, so to say, but that's like from the experience of the students which have already taken the course, into some course which is like very hard. It's a medium level course, or it's like a very easy course. Easy courses, easy to get grade, not much efforts required. Hard courses, very brutal courses, and very tough to survive the course, but very fulfilling ones at the same times, because if it is hard to survive, then that means that there is a lot to learn.
Right.
Otherwise, how will the course be hard to survive, right? So you need to find the right balance and understand if this is the right place for me. Um, so usually what I have seen through my experience is picking up one hard, one medium, and one easy during a semester usually gets you through the semester, while giving you the space to learn what you need to for looking for the jobs. That was my target, by the way. That's why I'm speaking from that context. For example, some of the other universities like San Jose State University, they have a clear location advantage. So now the university ranking, you might see it's 70, 80 or something like that. It's not like in the top 50, but the coursework is good. I have good friends in San Jose State University, because it is just the it's in the Bay Area. It's in San Jose. Okay, so because of that, a lot of employers directly hire from San Jose State University. I know friends at my company who are directly from San Jose State University and right working right there in San Jose. And San Jose State University has a very interesting thing though. They usually get their coursework catered to the companies who are hiring from them for their campus. Okay, so that's a very good thing to have. So for example, your target is to just to get the job, that's a university for you. If your target is to detailed research, CMU is a university for you. You have seen two different universities at two different stages, but it depends on your purpose what you want to choose. So one very important factor which I would like to mention here, which everyone should take into consideration, is usually when you register for the coursework, right? Uh, it comes with a number. Okay, the number of hours you need to invest in this course through the week. It's a number usually in hours, like 8 hours, 7 hours, 4 hours, 16 hours, 18 hours, and so on. You should take that number very seriously while thinking about if this course is hard, medium, or easy. Okay, if it is like 5 to 6 hours, it usually falls under the easy bucket. If it is like 10 hours, 12 hours, medium to close to hard but medium. If it is like 15, 16 hours, it is very hard course. Okay,
Right.
because think about it, the lecture hours is 2 to 3 hours, and you need to invest like good 10 hours per week. So when you talk about three courses collectively, and if you pick up three courses which needs you to work 15 hours per week, that counts to a total of 45 hours. And that goes to, if you are just working 5 days like all of us work, um, it is beyond 8 hours per day. So you have to study just that one course, those three courses, for more than 8 hours a day. Can you invest that much time? If you can, fantastic. If you can't, rethink your decision. You can sort of distribute these courses on multiple semesters and pick up some of the easier ones in the same semester, and that will sort of ease up the work pressure which you may have during that semester. And you can, this is more like thinking about picking up the right courses in a very neutral manner. You don't have to like really कि, oh ये सब करने का भाई अपन तो एकदम भारी है. Oh yes, no doubt. But sometimes you have to also think about your life, because when you come to masters, it's not the only thing which you do. You have to do your own laundry, you have to cook your own meals, you have to take care of yourself if that's a priority for you. You have to go to the college, you have to take the lectures.
Social life is there.
Social life is there. It's a zillion things happens around you. So you have to really think about these things in a very practical manner. So I used to think about these things in a way that the number of hours per week, the weekly hours estimates which are given in the courses, I used to take those numbers very seriously, and usually plan my weeks around those things. So uh, I think, and that is something which a lot of people can take advantage of, that this is how you should pick up the right courses.
Got it. So I think just to summarize, it's more about like the location, the professors, and the coursework. Like these
Yes.
three are the factors which
Absolutely.
should be taken into consideration when applying for university. Ranking is one of it, but ranking cannot be the only part of it. There can be colleges which are in 60s, 70s, but have a good location advantage because of which they should have been chosen.
Fantastic. That's how you
Got it.
summarize this.
Hey, so now that you've seen that we've covered a lot of stuff after bachelor's, which is like how do you apply for jobs, how do you prepare for jobs, how do you create your LORs, SOPs, how important are they? I think the next chapter is much more important, which is about how do you, once you're in your masters, how do you think about your internships? Career fair में कैसे behave करना है, कैसे network करना है? How do you get a job in United States or anywhere you're doing masters for? How do you leverage your bachelor's or your what do you say, what your job connections in order to get a job after masters? So all of these things we'll be covering in the next episode. But for now, this is it. If you have any questions, feel free to put down in the comments below, and we'll make sure we'll answer those all the questions in the upcoming episode. So thank you for watching and subscribe for more. Thank you.